Good afternoon, good afternoon. So, as has become a bit of a norm, the news from Jasco comes and kind of fits and starts, and got another bunch late last week. And, some other, small things over the intervening time. It wasn't really enough to make a video about, so we had the pack box openings and things like that. But yeah, we actually have a bunch to cover today. So, first and foremost, Jasco announced that they're going to start doing monthly webcam events for cash. So this is going to be, each month there's going to be a Monday night webcam event hosted by some third party. The first one's going to be Unfun Stuff. And it's going to be $10 entry unofficially. This is sort of according to Chris Bromley in the Discord chat. That's going to be $10 entry. And if you make the top 8, you will get $125 cash. So it's a $1,000 pool, not bad. Pretty decent for a few hours work, right? And there's going to be a 64 player cap. And there is going to be participation prizing as well. There's going to be a couple plus ultra packs, a couple booster packs, something like that. So it's not an all or nothing kind of thing. But they're hoping to hit 64 players each time, so at the top 8 is just your 3 hours. And for this first one, it's going to be March 13th. That's in a little bit over a week as of recording. The signups will go live on March 6th. And that's going to be hosted by Unfun Stuff. They're going to be League of Villains characters only. So this is pretty much any character League of Villains stamp aside from, it sounds like, All Might 7. But the rest of the League of Villains characters, Innsmouth and all the characters in the set and the starter characters will all be legal. As part of this, to try to make sure that that top 8 is exactly 8 3-0 players, they're going to try to put in a tiebreaker rule. So, this makes sense. So you don't have draws, you don't have, make cash versus not make cash down to tiebreaker strength of schedule. So they want to put in a tiebreaker rule to make sure that every match ends in a win or a loss. The current choice of tiebreaker rule is, frankly, indefensible. They're going to do, tentatively for now, they're planning to do just whoever has the most health remaining, just the raw number of health, which runs into obvious problems in a game where characters start with different health totals. So you could have, game 3 starting with 3 minutes left because people are going to pack musculars in their sideboard just to try to cheese the tiebreaker roll, and various other sorts of obvious problems with making that your tiebreaker roll. Now, there really isn't any good tiebreaker rule you can do with this game. That's why there's never been one, but there are certainly options that are a lot less bad than this. So hopefully they change it. If they don't, I suspect it will last all of one event before they do change it. So we'll see what they do with that. But for now, in 8 days as of recording, we're going to see some people trying out some League of Villains characters, and we'll see how much the tiebreaker sort of warps things. We might see a lot of Fire Dobbies because he can play Muscular in the sideboard, for instance. We might see some maybe air compressed siding Innsmouth. I assume most decks will want to either have Muscular or Innsmouth in their sideboard and not be playing the other 6 symbols. But you'll have people that are just like, nah, I don't care, I'll just try to win and win my match, win in time or whatever, right? So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, signups start tomorrow. Either sign up quickly if you think it's going to hit the cap. If you don't think it's going to hit the cap, you can take your time. We'll see what the turnout's like for it. In other news, we got some rules updates. The usual, pre-launch barrage of rules updates that they do each set. This one had a few more erratas than usual. There's a lot of clarification stuff, mostly United States of Smash clarifying that, yeah, you just commit all your ready foundations, however many ready foundations you have, that's where you're committing. Kind of the intent of the card, and wasn't expressly put on there the way that it needed to be. Binding armbar, the Eraserhead combo throw from the back page was missing a word to make sure that you are indeed sealing rival foundations and not your own. Forced Quirk activation got an errata and a clarification in the FAQ that contradict each other. But the thrust of it is that it's not, whatever it's doing is not going to carry over to the next enhanced step. This is for your rival's next enhance has to be the thing you pick effect. So they issued an errata to say that, this only lasts for the rest of the enhanced step, and then did a clarification where if they pass, it still destroys, or if they pass for the rest of the enhanced step, it still destroys. I guess those don't expressly contradict each other. Like, they could, pass 3 times and then play the enhance, I guess, is the way this is set up, but people are a little confused about that, so but we'll see if there's any follow-up there. Teamwork was just missing the word different on symbols. It was kind of obvious how that card was going to work. There's a functional errata on saving Bakugo to prevent an infinite loop. Basically, if you find a way to unflip it during its own response window, it could unflip itself infinitely and draw your whole deck. So now it can only respond to a different card being flipped, which is how you would think it would work. But there was that weird corner case where you could find a way to put your deck in your hand. You can still technically do it in a very, very niche situation, but it shouldn't come up, basically, at this point. And they also handled Spinner via an FAQ. This is the thing where they want to make sure that you pick speed or damage when you activate Spinner's ability, and it's not, it doesn't wait the way like an Ice Gliding would until the next attack shows up to decide what the boost is. So rather than try to errata him to make that clear, they decided to just do an FAQ entry that says that this is how we want it to work, and that's just how it's going to work. We also got an update to the rulebook itself. Mostly nothing huge here, just the obvious stuff. They had to add echo, things like that. Little bits that, people have nitpicked over the past few months that they've cleaned up. But one actual addition to this is that you can no longer seal a sealed foundation or freeze a frozen foundation. So because these were assigned effects before, your game just didn't really care if something was sealed already. You could still pick it for a sealed effect if you want. For instance, if it's like a seal and commit, you could pick a sealed card. You no longer get to do that. If something tells you to seal foundation, you have to do as much as you can, right? So you have to pick a foundation that you're allowed to seal. And the same thing with frozen. So very niche thing, maybe relevant to some card in this set I'm not thinking about, or just something they wanted to do because of some point that they got asked a question about it or whatever. So that is notable. Somebody, I don't think they expressly called out this change. It seems really easy to miss if people aren't monitoring that rulebook, so definitely be aware of it, because it's probably in there because it could come up. Like maybe there's a promo we haven't seen or something that deals with this or whatever. Speaking of new cards, they did preview the Provisional Store Championship promos a couple webcam Wednesdays ago. I'll link to the article for that, and of course there'll be links for all the rules documents in the description as well. 3 cards this time, just 3 cards, and one of them's the formerly Ball Might, formerly Gen Con All Might. The other 2 are the Streaming of the Reward above, which is going to be a very interesting incentive to run Toga and Twice in particular. Still kind of a useful card otherwise, but really, really good in Toga and Twice. As well as a counter character favored card with Muscular on it for Muscular and Shoji 2. So, kind of like relatively character-specific promos, not the hugest of staple-y things, but still cards you're gonna be happy to have for going for your Provisional Store Championships, so pretty good. And then a bunch of like small, mostly Discord-related notes. They put up a little poll about Webcam Weekly formats of like what formats would you like to see, like set only formats, common ground formats, various rules, just a bunch of lists of like, if they're doing different things on Wednesdays to try to spice up their Webcam Wednesdays, they want to see what people would actually be interested in, right? Because they don't want to come out with like, oh, hey, this week's Common Grounds, and then nobody signs up because nobody actually wants to do Common Ground, right? So they're putting out a little poll for that. If you're interested in maybe playing in some Webcam Wednesdays at some point, definitely fill that out. Even if you don't normally do it, if you think you might, or you might do it if there's a neat format or whatever, go ahead and put something in there. There was a point last week where Paul from one of the top level executives at Jasco dropped in the Discord chat, seemingly not anticipating that he was just going to get ambushed with people being very angry about the Plus Ultra Redemption situation, which was obviously what was going to happen if Paul stopped into the Discord chat. So, that turned into, a bunch of arguing back and forth or whatever for a couple hours. But somewhere in there, Paul did say that they're working on some sort of plan that's going to make Plus Ultra packs more available, which doesn't necessarily expressly solve the problem, but, might make life a little bit easier. And he thought that might have been already announced, so that might be getting announced any day. Now, of course, it hasn't. It's been a few days and we haven't seen anything further on that, so nothing official on like, oh, this is 100% happening. It's at least something that's being discussed. We don't really know what that looks like. It might just be changes in the number of kits that they're sending stores or something like that. So we'll see about that. Also in there was some talk about they're going to try to do some updates on their Discord rules to try to make them a little bit more precise and make it, you know, lots of letter of the law reasons if they need to ban somebody or mute them or whatever for a while. So if you hang out in the Discord a lot, that might be coming up. It probably doesn't affect you, right? It's probably just don't be a jerk kind of stuff, but there's another thing that got mentioned that's worth mentioning. And then lastly, you know, kind of bigger, you know, I don't want to overexpose it here, but the Chibi DLC cards, the upcoming DLCs, were sent to stores in Europe thanks to Asmodee, and so of course now they're all previewed, they're out in the wild, people have pictures and all of that. I don't want to go through them on my channel, but Ace Maneuver, Sam Tate did a video on them, so if you're interested, I'll link to his video. He kind of goes through them all in sort of long form, and I figure that's a pretty reasonable place to send people for these. Obviously, you know, Jesco's not going to allow them to be shared in the official Discord, but in pretty much any other Discord, they're kind of floating around, so it's public enough that it's not worth trying to hide it, right? But so I'll just link to that video in the description. Check it out there. Yeah, so that wraps it up. That's all we have for this video. You know, so it's lots of small things. The rule stuff and the monthly mayhem and a bunch of random little bits. We'll see if we get anything over the next week. Of course, people are, you know, irritated about that tiebreaker rule. People are still mad about the Plus Ultra redemption. We'll see if Jesco has any updates on those or any other sort of news. We're not really expecting much of anything. Probably some formal previews of the DLC coming up. So should be quiet for a little bit. You know, I'll keep hopping around looking for other little video ideas to do between now and whenever there's enough news to do another video. But yeah, that's all for today. Have a good rest of your week and have a good week. And I'll see you next time. Take care.